This time on episode 420 of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., we're going to discuss the Marvel Studios Disney Plus Move Night second episode, Summon the Suit. We're also going to discuss some weekly Marvel Studio news, including asking the question, is Daredevil's MCU canon dispute resolved? We're going to talk about the removed tribute in The Punisher on Disney Plus, and a removed Luke Cage tribute on Disney Plus as well. I'm SP from Better Podcasting, a show dedicated to help make your podcast better. And it is part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other insightful and wonderful geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
You have been granted clearance by Director Alfonso Mack Mackenzie. Stand by for a S.H.I.E.L.D. debriefing. All information to be discussed here is classified and may only be discussed among agents granted clearance by the S.H.I.E.L.D. Director.
Now it's time for your scheduled debriefing. I'm Agent Chris.
And I'm producer of the show, Director SP. Welcome to Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., a Marvel Comic Universe fan show discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Marvel comic book universes as told on screen by Marvel Studios. The show is recorded on Thursday, April 7th, 2022, live from the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. studios and broadcast mooncast-wide via www.geeks.live. Come and join our live chat as we record. Hey, Chris, happy National Beer Day.
So what kind of beer are you grabbing for your celebratory drink later?
Good question. Because we had the wedding in October, and yes, I know it's April, we are still going through some of the beer that we had purchased for the wedding. It's down to just less than a dozen cans right now. Maybe a dozen and a half. But what's in the fridge right now from that are Budweiser cans.
I'm sorry.
Me too. But have to get rid of it. And believe it or not, nobody would take it. Could you believe that? Nobody wants Budweiser?
You can do beer bread. You can do a nice beer batter for some fish and chips.
Beer chicken. Have you done that on the grill?
Oh, yeah, that's good too.
You know, I will say with Budweiser, one of my favorite Super Bowl commercials was the frogs when they went, Budweiser. You remember that?
Oh, I love the frogs.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to talk about that at school, though, because when that came out, I was in like second grade.
No way.
It was really young, something like that.
I'm old. Oh. I was definitely drinking age when that came out. Wow. Anyway, it's National Beer Day, but more importantly, there's another activity that often goes with beer that today is, and I'm going to bring it up because I know that Chris is big into it. Happy opening day, Major League Baseball.
I am so happy to be able to say that my favorite team, the defending champion Atlanta Braves, get to play tonight against one of my best podcasting friends, Carrington Martin's team, the Cincinnati Reds.
And for those that don't know, for some reason, and I don't know why, I guess it's just tradition now, Cincinnati Reds have the opening game to the entire season every year. I don't know why that is, but that is the case.
I don't either. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him on the show tonight to ask.
Yeah. It's like Thanksgiving. For those that are asking, SP, why you're bringing this up, I don't know why it is. It's like when the Cowboys or the Lions are always playing on Thanksgiving in the United States. I don't understand why that is, because I can kind of get the Cowboys because there's a lot of fans of the Cowboys. At least everybody would like you to think there's a lot of fans of the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys suck. Yes, SP is saying this. So send your hate mail to the Stargate Pioneer at GonnaGeek.com. Yes, go ahead. Anyway, the Cowboys and then the Lions. And nobody likes the Lions except for those people from Detroit because the Lions haven't been all that great. So I don't understand why these traditions exist, but they do. So it is opening day. Your team is playing, so I hope they do well tonight.
Well, thank you. And I am also with you on my confusion on why the Lions are so special.
Don't understand that. Anyway, we can have this conversation after the show, but we have a job to do because we love talking about Marvel.
Because of bike rides with pretty strangers who happen to be your spouse.
If you'd like to talk to us about trying to find out where to put your hands on the driver when you're going down the streets of London to make sure that you don't fall off, you can contact us on our website, legendsofshield.com.
If you have ideas for where you can actually store an extra helmet that doesn't make you worried that the helmet's going to fly off, give us a call at 844-THE-BUS-1. That's 844-843-2871.
If you're big into e-biking with somebody else, I have not seen too many of those out there, you can let us know on our Twitter account at Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D.
If you can do some cool jumps or other tricks on your bike, especially with somebody else on it, why don't you tag us on YouTube at youtube.com/GonnaGeek?
If you happen to own a moped and you drive anywhere else other than London or Europe, actually, why don't you join our Discord server and have a conversation about how you use your moped at GonnaGeek.com/Discord.
And if you happen to have a wonderfully geeky podcast about riding your bike or otherwise 2- or 3-wheeled vehicle, maybe take a look at joining up the GonnaGeek.com podcast network,
which Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a proud member of. Okay, Chris, I think by now, the listener and viewer, they have noticed something different tonight. Do you think?
I really hope so, because it jumped straight out at me.
Yeah. There's only 2 of us tonight. There's Chris and myself. Both Agent Michelle and Agent Lauren could not be with us tonight, both dealing with illnesses or medical issues. So we hope to have both of them back next week. But unfortunately, that means tonight you're just dealing with the 2 of us.
You've done it before. You all survived. You'll be fine.
Although I will say, Chris is saving you from the dreaded solo SP cast.
I actually might want to see that, but I'm glad it isn't for this one, because I'm really excited to be with you for this one.
I would mind trying it out at some point. Matter of fact, I used to do it all the time on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Long Box Edition, but we're not going to do it tonight. And we're going to talk about Moon Knight episode 2. We got some great things to say about it. Anthony wrote in, gave us some hints, so we'll talk about that. And even Michelle, she tweeted at us and she has a thought as well. So we're going to talk about that. You ready for it?
Oh, let's do it. I've been ready for this one since Tuesday.
All right, let's get into it. Moon Knight episode 2, Summon the Suit, premiered on Disney Plus Wednesday, April 6th, 2022. That was yesterday. The IMDB description reads, with little time to react, Steven is thrust into a war of the gods as mysterious partner arrives. Chris, who was the directors for this episode?
That's the key, because we had 2 directors on this one. First, we had Justin Benson, who has 12 directing credits going all the way back to 2010, one of which is The Twilight Zone from 2020, an episode of Loki, and 6 episodes of Moon Knight. We also had Aaron Moorhead, who has 14 directing credits going back to 2004, one of which was The Twilight Zone in 2020, an episode of Loki, and 6 episodes of Moon Knight.
I will say I took those credits last week before IMDb self-corrected, and it was saying all 3 directors had directed all 6 of the episodes. These 2, I believe, directed 4 of the episodes, I think, or maybe 2. I can't remember which one it is, but it isn't all 6 episodes that they have. That's not your fault, Chris. You didn't know. That was me being bad and not correcting the mistake from last.
No, it's Khonshu's fault. It's always Khonshu's fault.
Especially with this series. So the writer for this episode is Michael Kastelein. He has 4 writing credits since 2017. We actually recently talked about it because he did 3 episodes of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier last year. And he also did 10 episodes of a series called Truth Be Told. This is something that I didn't watch, but it was notable in his IMDb, so I thought I would put that on there. Of course, Jeremy Slater, as we discussed last week, is the Moon Knight showrunner. Been pretty active over on Twitter as well. Now, we're not going to go down the list, the entire list of the cast every week, but we're going to throw some notable actors or actresses on, and we're going to talk about them. The first one that we're going to talk about today is Oscar Isaac. He plays Marc, Spector, Stephen Grant, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight, whatever you want to call him. He has done a lot over the past few years. You're probably most notable for him with Star Wars. We did talk about that last week. He also played Duke Atreides in the recent HBO Max, I'll call it HBO Max, probably Warner Brothers or something like that, the Dune that was out last year. That was really good. I was watching it again, a lot of bass to it, but they did it a lot better than the 80s. And it wasn't just because the CGI was better. I think the writing was better. I think the way they portrayed it was better. And perhaps it's better known in lexicon, so you're able to play it a little bit better. And I enjoyed it. Did you happen to see it, Chris? Did you see the Dune, the most recent Dune?
I don't know. The fact that I have the Dune tattoo means I definitely saw this one.
So what did you think about Oscar Isaac as Duke Atreides in the
He
film?
did such a good job with that. And honestly, he was one of my favorite actors in that movie. Zendaya was obviously my favorite.
Yeah, he was very serious during the movie, right? As Duke Atreides, because you can't really play it light. It's a very serious role.
And that surprised me a little bit because everything else I've seen him in, you have a little bit of that lightness with him. It's not that I never thought that he couldn't do something serious like that. I just never thought that he would be given a role where that was what he needed to do.
So you have the seriousness of Duke Atreides, which correlates a little bit more, in my opinion, to Marc Spector. And then you have the lightness that you saw in Star Wars, which can go into Stephen Grant a little bit more. Although I won't say that Stephen Grant has the seriousness that his Poe Dameron character had in Star Wars. Star Wars was more of an even split, but Stephen Grant is definitely a lot light. That's the only description I have for Stephen Grant is it's a very light character. And I can't think, looking at the rest of his IMDb that I've thrown out there, I think the closest thing that I can throw in there that is completely light, like Stephen Grant, would probably be the Addams Family 2. He played Gomez Addams there. And then maybe in Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, which will come out later this year as Miguel O'Hara, maybe, but we haven't seen it yet, so I can't say that. But anyway, I think when you take a look at his IMDb, you see the serious roles, you see the lighter roles. He's probably a pretty good person to cast for Moon Knight.
Yeah, just the range of what he's able to pull off. You need somebody who can essentially do 12 different roles. And I think they did a great job with the casting here.
Indeed. Another actor that was in this episode, we finally get to see Layla. We heard her voice last episode, but we see Layla this episode and we get into her backstory. But she is played by May Calamawy. I believe I said that correctly. If I haven't, please let me know and correct me. I don't want to do wrong by May. But May doesn't have an extensive IMDb. I threw some things that might be notable for others because they seem to be larger roles. One was a series called The Long Road Home, and she had 7 episodes of that in 2017. Another was a character in a series called Ramy. It's Ramy, and that was in 2019 through 2020. But relatively unknown, at least to me. And based on what I saw in the episode, I didn't have a problem with the character of Layla as she was played. I mean, we'll talk about the plot and how it worked in the story in a second here, but I was fine with the Layla character in this episode. I think May did a decent job. Did you think May did a decent job playing Layla?
Yeah, and I haven't seen her in anything else, so I have nothing I can compare this role to with anything else, but I'll be excited if I see her in other things.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that we'll see her in a lot other episodes just because she was brought up by Khonshu throughout the episode here. All right, that is the cast that we'll talk about this week. Now we get into the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. exclusive synopsis written by one of the hosts of Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Are you ready for this, Chris?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
After his night at the museum, Steven finds himself in self-inflicted bedside confinement again. And then after playing and losing mirror hide and seek with Marc, Steven, in a moment of daring, or let's face it, just plain stupidity, returns to the scene of his impressive restroom destruction, only to see A, no visual proof of his nightmares, 2, get past a pamphlet for his mental health treatment, and C, win a forced career transition without substantive severance or a golden parachute.
Needing some condolences, Steven hugs the living statue Crawley, who almost hugs back, and then plays detective to find Marc Spector's special spy storage unit hangout, where he is reunited with the magical golden scarab. Marc and Steven start to come to terms with their arrangement, until Steven tries to run away and forget it all happened.
However, Khonshu has other plans for his avatar and makes a run at Steven, making Steven flee straight into Marc's wife Layla and a pending sticky divorce situation. Kennedy and Fitzgerald apprehend a thief and a forger, Steven, and give Steven a glimpse into his criminal past.
Harrow releases Steven and offers him a different path free from Khonshu and his justice of the past for future justice with Ammit. Layla rescues Marc and says the thing, "Summon the suit," to help produce a superhero landing and a psycho Colonel Sanders cosplay.
Steven finally lets Marc take over the suit to defeat the Jackal, but Layla and Moon Knight lose the Scarab in the process.
Steven and Marc have a difference of opinion before Khonshu and Marc have a sincere chat before ending up right outside the Egyptian pyramids.
All right, we'll talk about our opening thoughts here. Chris, what did you think about the episode?
Most importantly for me, the fact that this one was not a giant confusing mess makes me so much more likely to recommend watching the show to other people who don't know anything about the comics or the MCU in general. And really, I don't know if I'll tell them that the first episode is a giant mess. I might just tell them, watch the first two together. Just pretend like it's a giant movie.
After this episode, I have a much better idea of what's happening in the series. So grateful for this episode. And like you, I was going to bring this up. I did not put it in the show notes, so I'm glad we're thinking the same thing. I think what Disney Plus should have done is they should have aired both episodes the first week. I really believe that, because there is so little known about this character in general Marvel fandom, just because people, just casual fans, don't know that much about him. Like us, we didn't know anything about it until Anthony came on. Well, you knew a little bit more about it because Anthony came on your show earlier on, your Playcomics show. But we had Anthony on from Capes on the Couch a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, to go over Moon Knight background. If that wasn't for that, I would have been I would have, had I not been podcasting on Disney or on Marvel Studios, I don't know if I would have taken this beyond the first episode. So I think a lot of the fandom is sitting there going, huh? What? And if you would have just taken it all the way through episode 2, I think people would have been more engaged. There is still a little mystery after the end of episode 2. And I think that would have been a better endpoint for the first episode drops. What do you think about that? If you're binging and you make sure you watch both episodes, but they should have dropped both episodes right away.
I also could understand if they wanted to do like a Wednesday, Friday drop, because the conversation around the internet was, what is going on with this show? I have no idea what's happening. And that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. But what was kind of bad was the fact that we had a week of no answers for what's happening on the show. Whereas you could have had whatever part of Wednesday all day Thursday to have curiosity, and then a Friday clear it up with the second episode.
Yeah, perhaps. I'm not going to say no to that. It might have worked. I think it still would have been better if they did both episodes the first day. And like I said, if we weren't podcasting on it, if we did not have background on it, I don't know if I would have stayed with the series. And a lot of people that I talked to had the same issue as well. I talked to some friends of mine and I asked them, have you seen episode 1? And they said, no, not yet. I'm planning to do it this weekend. This is after we had our podcast last week, Thursday night. So Friday I was asking if they saw it or not, because I was wondering if this was just us or because we were really involved in Marvel and we were thinking about it or whatever. And they said, no, I haven't seen it. So I said, tell you what, I'm going to send you a link to our previous episode that we talked about the background of Moon Knight, that Anthony came on and talked about it. Why don't you watch that first in the background? You can play it on 2X or whatever, just so you get an idea of what you're getting into. Because if you don't have that background, you're going to be not engaged in the episode. So again, I think that was one of the issues. And I want to bring up a comment from our co-host, Michelle. So she tweeted us on Twitter and she said about the episode, quote, less confused, but this is another Marvel TV show that will take 3 episodes to get interesting. When is this happening? Why should I care? The best part of episode 2 was Steven's interpretation of the suit. So we'll talk about the suit in a second. And we'll talk about when is this happening. And we'll talk about why should I care. Let's focus on the first thing that she said there, which was take 3 episodes to get interesting. Now, I don't think you have been a part of our complete Disney Plus run yet, so our listener might not know your stance on things. But Michelle definitely has been bringing up along the way with such series like The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This is taking too long to get interesting. I don't know where the series is going. You only have 6 or 8 episodes here. You can't take too long to set it up before you get into the meat of things. You need to set it up right away and then get going. She's saying it's going to take 3 episodes to get interesting. Like next episode, she's going to know a little bit more about what's happening. And let's get into the real plot of what we're going to do for the end here. And that makes it interesting for her. What do you think about that?
I'm a weirdo who just seeing the first episode by itself, that didn't really put me off for anything. After seeing that, I really wanted to hurry up and see episode 2, not because I wanted to know what was going on, really because I was confused and just wanted to know. But I like weird movies and I like weird things like that. And just seeing that kind of thing was interesting to me because I wanted to know how they were going to spin everything else out of that. But I can definitely see where she's coming from on the 3 episode thought.
All right. So listener, if you have a thought on whether you're still engaged with this series or not, please let us know and we'll talk about it on the next episode that hopefully Michelle will be back at and she can respond as well. Let's talk about some of the bigger items of the show here. Since we've already gone down what's happened in the show, let's focus on the bigger things. One of the things is the suit. So we have 2 versions of the suit, not just 1, but 2. Plus we get to see the suit materialize in front of our eyes. So you got the Mr. Knight version of the suit, which is Moon Knight's. I did some research on this. Anthony's not here, unfortunately, but Mr. Knight is the suit that Steven conjures up. And it's the suit in the comics that he uses when he's trying to communicate back and forth with law enforcement or city officials or government officials, and to look more professional rather than the warrior ninja of the Moon Knight suit. So that's the difference between the 2 suits. Chris, what did you think of the suits?
I really like the warrior one better. I'm just not a big fancy suit person. I mean, look at me. I'm here wearing no sleeves while I'm doing a podcast, so I am not a fancy person. It looked good on him. I just don't think it looked good as the warrior suit.
Yeah, so Anthony had a couple of comments about both suits. He said, I didn't care for how Mr. Knight was played for comic relief instead of the straight-laced persona he is in the comics. Like I said, Mr. Knight is more of like the business persona of Moon Knight in order to interface with officials and law enforcement. And then Anthony also says the fact that he's how Steven conjured the suit annoyed me. Okay, so that's coming from a comic book background. Anthony is going to have to come back next week. Anthony is going to come back next week, and he's going to have to explain that a little bit more. How'd you feel about the conjuring of the suit?
Just that, I really like that. I like having things come out of nowhere like that. kind of like you have the Flash pulling his suit out of his ring, kind of like how you have Iron Man's suit coming from wherever he's hiding at the moment. I like knowing that Marc or Steven or whoever else we're going to meet in this series can pull the suit from wherever when he needs it. And that he's not going to just be in a bathroom somewhere with a jackal coming after him and he can't do anything about it because he can't find a suit.
Yeah, so let's step back a second. We were talking about the Scarab possibly being Eternals tech last week, right? So if the Moon Knight suit from the god Khonshu basically is a remnant of Eternals type tech from way back in the day, I could see it being something that Marc is wearing and then thus Steven is wearing as well, that it comes out of kind of like the Watch Iron Man suit. Okay. So that's a bad example. The Watch was not the Iron Man suit, but the Watch called the Iron Man suit. But the Eternals tech is more advanced than anything that Stark did. Let's just go with that for now, right? Even if it's right or wrong. So maybe it's something small that Marc is wearing, or maybe it's something that's been implanted in Marc by Khonshu, and that the suit comes around Marc/Steven, and that's the way it is. So I can see that the way it is portrayed right now. Maybe nanites. I don't know what to call it. But then the weapons, how are those materialized, right? Because Mr. Knight has the sticks and Moon Knight has the moon throwing things that he takes off his chest. I can really believe the throwing things from the chest a lot more than I can believe the sticks, but I don't know. I didn't have a problem. I like the Moon Knight costume. I was kind of weirded out a little bit by Mr. Knight because I wasn't expecting that. So like I said, I had to do some research onto it, but okay, I'm getting where this is going. They've showed it to me now and I kind of get it. Maybe they'll explain where the suit comes from. Probably not, but I can accept. It's the leap of faith that I can accept for this series. So I'm okay with it. A couple of the comments Anthony had really quick is he says he has similar thoughts from last week. He liked the episode for what it was, but not Moon Knight. It was not the Moon Knight that he knew from the past. So I can see that. And he also said it was interesting, the more of the Marc and Steven interplay. We haven't really discussed that yet. So there's a lot of talking back and forth in the mirror. I enjoyed that because finally Steven's getting to the point where he's realizing there's other personality within his same body and only one of them control it at any one time. He's also, Steven is coming to terms with the Khonshu and the deal that Marc made with Khonshu and what they're supposed to do. So let's leave the deal out of Khonshu for a second and let's just talk about Marc and Steven and their interplay. Did you enjoy how that progressed? Do you think it was too slow or too fast in the episode?
I wish we had gotten more of this in the first episode, but I can understand why we didn't. That being said, I really like the progression that Steven is having here. Going from completely scared of everything, I have no idea what's going on, and I want to get back under the blankets with my teddy bear, to, hey, Marc, this is my body. Get the heck out of my body. I'm in control of my body. This is mine. And just the fact that they're actually having discussions and not just Marc saying, let me save us. I can handle this and keep us safe. And Steven curling up in a ball and trying not to cry. I really like how he's becoming a person and actually conversing with Marc.
And I assume that this relationship will progress. And I don't know, Anthony mentioned Jake, another personality within the body there. I don't know if Jake's going to come into play or not. I could see Jake coming into play because they're now at the end in Egypt by the pyramids, and maybe Jake as the driver, cab driver, whatever, will be more useful in that area. I don't know. We might be headed down that road, just as a little tidbit or heads up to the listener here as you go into episode 3 of Moon Knight. That might be a thing that we're looking into. So Michelle brings up another question. When is this happening? I don't really think we get an answer to that. It's still a little bit nebulous, but I do think that this is post-snap. What do you think, Chris? Do you think this is post-snap?
It is most definitely post-snap, because I was watching some of the hidden Easter egg videos before we came on tonight. And the passport that Marc has, I forget the exact date, but it's like June of 2018, something like that. And May was the snap. So you have this post-blip Marc who has gotten his passport, and passports are good for what, like 10 years, something like that?
Yes. United States passports are good for 10 years, and I think Marc is supposed to be American.
Yeah, it's definitely an American passport because it looks like mine, even though mine is garbage now because I let it lapse. So that gets us somewhere between 2018 and 2028, which is probably a longer range than Michelle's looking for, but it is a concrete range.
Okay. So that's when it's happening. It's post-snap, which also leads to another question later. But, well, let's talk about that right now. In the conversations back and forth, Khonshu brings up the state that Marc was in and that the body was lifeless. And we also hear about how Marc killed the scientists, right? Or the archaeologists. And I don't know if Marc died then, if that was right around the snap or not. I don't know. I'm getting a little nebulous about the time. I guess I probably should have looked at the cop view screen a little bit more to get date information off that, if there was any. But anyway, I am not completely sure if Marc was snapped or not. I think you have a little bit more detail there than I do. So what is your thoughts?
I don't think he was. That's completely me basing it on the passport thing. I don't know if Steven would be able to. I mean, really, is Marc a real person to be snapped? I don't see. This is just bringing so many questions in the more you think about it.
Yeah, because Marc has the passport. This is just me thinking, right? I don't know the answer to it because you do have multiple personalities inhabiting the same body. But I'm thinking the legal body belongs to Marc Spector as far as identification goes. So from that perspective, I see what you're saying right now. If there's multiple personalities, can one be snapped and one not? Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
Yeah, wow. I guess maybe yes. But I don't know if that event happened around the snap or not.
That's the whole thing too, because I didn't notice any kind of date for when the archaeologists were killed.
Right. Maybe we'll learn more next time. The other thing I will say is that something in the entity of the body that Marc and Steven inhabit right now was not snapped because the body didn't turn to dust. So at least some portion was not snapped.
That's like the one thing we can count on right there.
If that's true, if the body was not snapped, I don't think we know enough at this point, which is really annoying. But I guess at some point in time, Marvel was going to have to go outside of okay, we're not going to talk about the snap right away. It's not going to be a main theme, but I think it matters here. And I don't know why. I think it has something to do with the Khonshu inhabiting the body or using Marc/Steven as an avatar. Man, I don't know. Wow.
And Khonshu's previous avatar, why did he need a new one? Did that person get snapped?
Let's talk about that because that was new to me, at least. I don't know if Anthony said it before and my mind went over it or not. But Arthur Harrow mentions that he used to be Khonshu's avatar. And he was advising Steven a little bit. You don't have to do everything that he says. He can throw little temper tantrums, that sort of thing. I thought from that perspective, it was kind of good. Now, Harrow still wants the Scarab. There is definitely a purpose, and he could care less if Steven/Marc is still alive. You can tell. He just wants the Scarab. He wants the Scarab because it's going to lead to Ammit's tomb, I guess.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
Yeah. So that's why he wants it. And I don't think he cares what happens to anybody around him that does it. Layla brings up the fact that they have a reason for wanting to search for the Scarab. We're not sure what that reason is. We'll talk about Layla in a second. I don't want to overstep that. Let's get back to Harrow. It was a very interesting scene between Harrow and Steven because Harrow understands now that Steven is not a threat to him or wasn't a threat at that point in time, and they could actually sit down over soup and have a conversation. And Steven's trying to put everything together. Poor Steven. He doesn't even know what's going on in his own head, much less what's going on with the Scarab or this cult or whatever. But that was a very interesting scene. It was well played between Oscar and Ethan, and I get why these two guys are cast. I get why these two guys appear to be friends whenever you see them in behind the scenes or anything like that. It just seems like they get along really well. And I think that camaraderie really added to this scene between Harrow and with Steven. I'm stumbling over what to call Steven, but the body was inhabited by Steven at that point in time. So I think we can say between Harrow and Steven. Very impactful. I enjoyed the scene, and it led into the conflict that resulted from that.
I'm just really wondering, though, why did Harrow stop being Avatar for Khonshu? Because we don't have an answer of how far after the snap this is. You could have had Harrow snapped and come back. You could have had Khonshu just being done with Harrow for any number of reasons. That's my big mystery, is why did Harrow stop?
We also get the philosophical differences between Ammit and Khonshu. They're both kind of gods of justice, wanting to do the right thing. And that's something that Harrow brings up, is that Khonshu likes to inhabit avatars that are righteous, that are wanting to do the right thing, right? But Khonshu is big into punishing people for actions that they have done. Ammit apparently is punishing people for things that they might do in the future. So that's the philosophical differences between the two. And you can see how they would clash a little bit, especially Steven really zones in on this one thing about, what about a baby? What if let's just use baby Hitler, for example. It's a bad example, but let's just use it. What if Ammit came into contact with baby Hitler? Ammit would have punished baby Hitler for what adult Hitler was going to do in the future. So then you wouldn't have Hitler to do the bad things. So that's kind of Ammit's viewpoint. But what if you have somebody coming along? Let's take it to the Harry Potter universe. What if it's like Snape, and you have Ammit that comes in and punishes Snape and kills Snape before Snape can redeem himself and do what he needs to do to help Harry Potter? Then all of a sudden Harry Potter doesn't get the help he needs, right? Wow, what a range of things that can happen.
The whole thing gets real messy. Khonshu is easy. Somebody did a bad thing, they get punished for it. The end. There is no question there. With Ammit, you have this giant mess of prevenge and what people have tried to do with predictive. I can't remember the words they're using for it, but like trying to predict crime rates in people that, at least in humans, has been horrible.
Talking about like Minority Report sort of stuff.
Yeah. And like there is Minority Report, really a great example of that, where they haven't done anything but might. Plus, you have the idea of going back to your baby Hitler example. What if there's something worse that happens then? And somebody worse comes along because there's that gap in history to fill. So how many problems is Ammit causing in trying to prevent all these bad things from happening?
So many things there. And I think we're going to get to it explored maybe a little bit more, but I think the conflict is set up right now between Ammit and Khonshu. And I don't know what the resolution is going to be in episode 6, because I think this is only a 6-episode series. Let's move on. Let's talk about Layla, because Layla comes in, and originally I was like, why was her moped right around where Steven was? And she answered that my second watch through, she said, I'm tracking your cell phone, which is an older cell phone, but okay. So you can do that sort of thing. You can track cell phones. So, okay, I can get over that hurdle and that she's there. But it brings up a larger question. What really does she want? What is Layla doing? Why does she need the scarab? Why did Marc and Layla go after the scarab? Why are they married? I get why Marc wanted to divorce her if it was just to protect her, but I sense there's something else going on in there as well. Man, it's just layers that we don't have yet. I have no thoughts in my mind that she is not going to end up where Marc is right now. She's going to track down Marc in Egypt. She's probably on her way right now because she knows that the scarab is going to open a tomb, which is probably in Egypt anyway. And she's got 2 reasons to go between the scarab and Marc. But I don't know what her goal is in the end. And I know Khonshu wants her as his next avatar. And I don't know, does Khonshu use up a body after a few years and then he needs a new avatar, kind of like the Goa'uld in Stargate, where they need a new body just because it's used up, because the energy and stuff like that? Or I guess it's the Trills over in Star Trek also experience it's more of a symbiotic relationship over there, but the human body is not meant to be used to be a host. It's just too much energy and the life force gets sucked out of you, that sort of thing. So I don't know. Layla's got a lot of levels to her.
Yeah, I've got no context for her from the comics at all, so I'm excited to see what's happening. I saw this and it was an instant. How important is she going to be? Is she going to just be someone who kind of pushes the plot along, or is she going to be part of the Marc Steven progression into whatever they're going to grow into as a character? Because honestly, I can see it going either way.
Yeah, we'll wait and see here. Just something to look out for right now. So a couple other things from the episode. The wall of monitors in the museum was impressive. I should have counted them, but I didn't. There had to be close to 50, maybe even 75, maybe 100 monitors. Well, a wall of monitors like that, it's going to give out a lot of light. It's going to give out a lot of heat, even with newer monitors, right? And Chris, you brought this up. I don't know how many graphics cards you need to run all this stuff. I don't know if the monitors were actually CGI or if maybe it was a real monitoring station somewhere where they were shooting. I have no idea. That monitoring wall was impressive and I want one.
My wife looked at me and said, "No, you are not hooking up that many monitors." And I said, "All right, cool. I just hooked up a 5th. That can last me for a couple weeks before I try to add number 6.
Yeah, I could probably do that as well, but I need to reconfigure this room in order to get 6. My goal all along has been to have 6 monitors, both here and at work. I'm working up to 6 at work. I've got 4 at work. I have to beg, borrow, and steal at work to get up another monitor. And people don't understand why I need monitors until they see what I do. And they're like, "Oh, SB, I see what you mean." Like, yeah.
Well, fun fact, this is the first podcast I'm recording with monitor number 5 hooked up.
Oh, that's sweet. We'll have to have you on Better Podcasting at some point in time and talk about your monitor use, because that's always a big thing of how many monitors do you need to do a video podcast?
2 more than you have.
Always. It doesn't matter how many you have. It's always 2 more, right? Anyway, that was impressive. And at the storage unit, this is something that a lot of people don't think of. So as they're walking in and walking out, you clearly see all the storage units and you see that there's no ceiling on them. And that's pretty typical for a storage unit in a big warehouse area where there's no ceiling on there. But you don't think twice about it until you get in to Marc's storage unit number 43. And I'm sure some 43 has some Easter egg reference to it that I just don't know because we don't know Moon Knight. But they get in there and the blocking was pretty good, except for there was 1 or 2 shots that I clearly saw the metal mesh above. And you kind of see this in some, like BSG had a prison ship on it. Battlestar Galactica had a prison ship on it. And it was configured that same way where on top there was bars that you could walk across. I don't think you could walk across these bars. Anyway, there's the cot in the storage area. First of all, how do you lock the door? Because the door is locked from the outside. How do you lock the door to make sure that nobody can get in, right? Once you're in there and feel safe when you're sleeping. And number 2, if you snore, everybody in the entire warehouse is going to hear you snoring because there's no ceiling there. I just thought that was kind of weird that the way that it was set up, although it was impressive. Kind of a bad for being a bat cave, though.
Yeah, the storage unit that I have some stuff in, it definitely has the wire mesh going across the top. But also, it does not have walls that I can get shiny like that in absolutely any way. So I don't know how Marc pulled that one off.
The only thing I can think of is maybe rolled stainless steel or something like that, and they just polished it up. I don't know.
It seems like a lot of work when he probably would want as few reflective surfaces as possible.
You would think, but I don't know. Because remember, Marc mentioned there's been this wall, and up till now it's not been an issue. But now we have to talk back and forth. But Marc always seemed to be aware of Steven, so I'm not sure how that. There's some plot things in there that maybe we don't know about yet, or maybe they just poorly explained.
Did you notice the QR code though outside by the number 43 on the storage unit door?
No, did you put your phone up to it?
I didn't, but the same video that told me about dates was also telling me that that QR code was the same QR code next to the sarcophagus in episode 1, except now it takes you to a different Moon Knight comic.
Oh, so it's Moon Knight comic QR codes?
Yeah.
Or is it Marvel Unlimited, basically, that's taking you to?
Something like that, anyway.
All right. Another question that I have, because we had all the speculation about Donna, and is Donna the real villain of this whole thing, or how Donna plays into this, right? So I got a question. Now that we're not in the museum, was Donna, Dylan, and JB, who's the security guard, were they all one and dones, or are we going to see them again?
The security guard, I think we're going to see again in a substantial role somehow. Maybe not super duper important, but at least medium important. Donna, I think we're going to have as more of a one-shot appearance. Oh, Steven, where have you been? You're fired now kind of thing. Where she's going to come in, do the thing that needs to happen, and leave, and we'll never see her again.
Steven was not fired. He was given a forced career transition without substantive severance or a golden parachute.
But who was the HR guy? Because you could never see if he had the tattoo or not.
Oh, that's right. So maybe you're saying he's not really fired. It was just pretend fired by the cult.
It could be.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't have any predictions per se going forward. I think we're going to be in a race to Ammit's tomb at this point in time. I think Khonshu doesn't want anything to do with Ammit. I'm pretty sure Ammit and Khonshu are the two gods of the 9 Ened that were not on the poster. I'm just spitballing here and saying that that's probably true. I don't know Egyptian mythology enough to know if that's true or not. If I'm wrong, just add it to the list of SP being wrong. And I think Layla's going to come in, and I think that we're going to get to some sort of resolution, but I don't know what the resolution is here. I mean, are there bad guys? Is Arthur a bad guy? I don't know if he is.
That's one of the things I was really thinking about too, because he's going in, he's trying to make the world a better place. He's doing it in some really weird, obscure ways, and I think he's going completely over the top with it. But when you get Steven into the cult, like, headquarters, Haro is treating him well. He's offering him food. He's showing him where everybody is. He's introducing him to people, or at least telling him who people are. And besides the glass that you can still hear Haro walking on, there's not really anything that weird or bad about him. And the glass isn't even really a bad thing. It's just a weird, I'm going to have my guard up on you because that's really weird kind of thing.
So the last note that Anthony had was Khonshu remains the only recognizable character from the comics. He's every bit the prick he is in the books. And I would say after seeing the whole thing, I'd say yeah. Especially with Arthur pointing out that Khonshu was throwing a tantrum, I was like, okay, well, that's what he's doing. He's throwing a tantrum. And that he was using Layla as a leverage against Marc. If you're a benevolent god, you don't need to use Layla as leverage. So that's just, to me, he's a prick.
Yeah, there are definitely better ways he could have pulled that one off.
All right. Do you have any predictions on where we're headed?
Seeing how the episode ended with Marc opening up the window to the pyramids like that, I think we're going to get kind of a Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe and a race to Ammit's tomb.
Yeah, I was thinking Raiders of the Lost Ark too. And that scene and I know it's not in Egypt, but that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, the opening scene where you walk in and you see all the traps along the way, right? And then you go through all the traps on the way out with the Rube Goldberg machine, basically, as you're going out, right? One of the iconic moments in all of movies. And I am ashamed to say that I did not see Raiders of the Lost Ark in the theater when I was growing up in I guess it was early 80s when that came out. I don't know. I saw it on a free HBO preview weekend with my parents. Sat down. I don't think they knew about the movie either, but Raiders of the Lost Ark came on and we were all just enthralled. Even my sister was watching it. She was like, that's pretty cool. But that's the scene that was like, wow, there's so much more to movies right now. And that was pretty cool. I don't know if we're going to get that or not, but I think that is. Now, Chris, you found a tweet that I think is very important. We talked a little bit about it on messaging before the podcast. So what about the pyramids can we say in relation to that scene that we saw?
That's a pretty realistic view that we have of the pyramids. You really can open up your window and they're right there.
Yeah, I've watched some documentaries, as we were talking about on messaging before, like on Nova and stuff. And while they're very careful of trying to depict the pyramids as being out in the desert, they're actually right there in the city, right? So there's a few camera angles, which I don't know if it's the Egyptians themselves or if it's just the documentarists themselves that don't want to show the pyramids right next to civilization, but they're right next to civilization. And matter of fact, I know some of the Nova episodes that I was watching, they were going over some excavations near the pyramids that actually were neighborhoods that they had to get rid of the neighborhoods and then start excavating into what was like the construction camps at the time so they could do some archaeological digs underneath there. I mean, it's that close to the city. You're talking like right there. Now, the tourist buses, they run from the hotels and stuff like that to get you there. So you're still taking buses up to it, but you could probably literally walk up to it. I don't know. I've never been there for sure, so I don't know personally, but yeah, it's right next to town. So that scene that we see of him looking out a window, that could possibly be a view. I don't live there. I can't say if it's for sure or not, but yeah, it's not like this is something in the Disney show or the Marvel show that isn't reality. It probably is reality there. All right, Chris, is there anything else you want to say about the episode?
One thing that I know a lot of people were worried about was you have Marc Spector and his Jewish heritage. And that seems to maybe be something that is kind of going to be taken care of. Because one thing that I do think is going to happen is maybe we're sneaky getting Marc as the main character and Steven starting out as the Fako main character just to throw us all off the trail. But it buried in the credits, I forget the exact wording for it, but you do have something like a Jewish cultural consultant. And again, it's definitely not the way that they worded it in there, but essentially you know what I'm saying here. So you have somebody who's looking at all this, and Steven in the mirror in the hotel room, you can see him wearing a Star of David necklace in that reflection. I don't think Marc was wearing it, so maybe they're throwing that Jewish heritage to a different identity of Marc Steven Moon Knight. But it is something that they definitely have to be bringing in somehow, because I can see them just offhandedly getting a Star of David in there. but I don't think you would go hire somebody to be a consultant to make sure you get cultural things right if you're not going to take a deeper dive into it.
Yeah, that's a good catch. I think we'll see more of that next episode. Maybe as the series goes forward, I don't know, but yeah, we'll see. And it could be Jake too, right? That is got the Jewish heritage too, or another personality that we don't know about yet. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, those are the three I know about because everything I know about Moon Knight, I learned from Anthony.
That's right. And that's what Anthony's told us. So that's what we're going with. Excited to have Anthony back next week. So next week, we're going to be talking about Moon Knight episode 3. Hopefully that is what is going to be dropped. I don't think they're going to be dropping episode 3 through 6, but maybe, who knows? And we'll talk about whatever is dropped. In the meantime, we do have some quick Marvel Studio notes to talk about. The first news story that we're going to talk about today is from the direct.com. It's something that I've been following because I'm not 100% and believe that Daredevil in Netflix is the same Daredevil that's going to be in the MCU. I'm not against it, but I don't completely 100% believe it until I actually see it. And yes, I know that Matt Murdock was in Spider-Man No Way Home. We talked about it. I'm not convinced it's A, either the same character, or B, because of what's happening with the multiverse and the madness, if Daredevil is going to come into the MCU. Anyway, the direct.com ran into this. So the official Marvel site may have just settled the Daredevil canon debate as a report of the character's on-screen history referred to the events of his Netflix series, the Defenders team up, and his recent return in Spider-Man No Way Home. Matt Murdock's character page on the Marvel site includes a detailed, quote, on-screen full report, unquote, of the events experienced by Charlie Cox's hero. Not only does the report detail all 3 seasons of his Netflix adventures, but it also mentions that, quote, sometime later, Matt was hired as an attorney to defend Peter Parker, unquote. Here's the excerpt of the important part. Quote, soon after, Matt attended the funeral for Father Latham, where he made peace with Sister Maggie, now in a better state of mind than he had been in quite a while. Matt fully reconciled with Karen and Foggy, and the 3 of them discussed the idea of reforming their law firm, with Karen now as the firm's lead investigator and third partner. Sometime later, Matt was hired as an attorney to defend Peter Parker, as Peter had been publicly outed as Spider-Man and accused of Mysterio's murder. Though Peter was legally cleared of any wrongdoing, Matt warned him he'd still have to face the court of public opinion and advised Harold, quote, Happy, unquote, Hogan to hire a good lawyer. As if on cue, a protester threw a brick through the window of the Parker's apartment in support of Mysterio. Fortunately, due to his heightened senses, Matt was able to catch the brick before it hurt anyone inside. When Peter asked him how he was able to do that, Matt claimed it was because he was a really good lawyer and left it at that. Marvel's confirmation that Murdock became Peter Parker's lawyer sometime later than the dramatic ending of Daredevil Season 3 appears to indicate Charlie Cox will continue playing the same version of his character, not a multiversal variant, as many had speculated. Before we go on here, I know we talked about it a few weeks ago. I do have my mug, Nelson and Murdock, Attorneys as Law. It's not avocados at law, it's attorneys at law, but I do have my mug. It's been right here since we had the last podcast. I just haven't been able to bring it up when we were talking about it. So, Chris, I think if true, this puts to bed the speculation that Daredevil / Matt Murdock that we knew from Netflix is not going to be part of the MCU. I think this clearly states that the 2 are linked.
I refuse to believe it, though. Karen is going to run off and have vampire adventures. Foggy is going to relive his glory days and go coach youth hockey. And we are really seeing the Matt from Earth 65, which is the home of everybody's favorite spider person, Ghost Spider.
All right. Well, with the multiverse and madness, we might see all that anyway, but I don't know.
Disney owns all the properties that I know of.
Yeah, I guess it could happen. So we'll see. Including the Mighty Ducks. All right. Chris, what else has Disney Plus been doing?
Disney Plus has also gone and removed a Stan Lee tribute in The Punisher. This one makes a lot of sense because you have it coming right after a scene where a bunch of people are killed, and that is probably not the best place to put a tribute to somebody who has died and was as well loved as Stan Lee was. And this one just makes sense. It's not something that they've gone flat out and said that that's why they did it, but that's pretty much what the internet has decided is the reason. And at this point, I don't think it's going to matter if that's not actually the reason, because that's what everybody's going to think the reason is. But it's a good one, so it's probably okay.
We talked about it when we did our Punisher review before. It was a very poorly placed tribute, and it had us scratching our heads. Now, Stan Lee was a big Punisher type of guy, but having a tribute to him, as you said, a well-beloved persona, as Stan Lee was, right after he killed a bunch of people, probably not the best thing. Now, they might replace it somewhere else. I mean, that would be fine with me to do, but not after Punisher killed all those people. That was a cringe moment for all of us here on Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. Chris, you weren't with us at the time, but you can go back and listen to our episode. We did say something about it.
I had the same thoughts when I saw it, though. And honestly, if they don't replace it and put it somewhere else, I'm fine with that too, because the tribute is there for when people are watching it right after the event happened. And you just don't really have the full context of, hi, in the real world, Stan Lee just died when this episode came out. So not having it in there, I'd be perfectly fine with.
Yeah. All right. What else has Disney Plus been up to?
We get to flip to the other side of the coin here, because Disney Plus has also removed a tribute to Reg E. Cathey from the season 2 finale credits of Luke Cage. And I honestly have no idea why. I tried looking it up on the internet. I could find nothing.
Now, the article that this came from was a CBR.com article, and it didn't have anything there. Matter of fact, what it did have was a tweet on there by Chio Madari Coker, who was, of course, involved with the series Luke Cage. He said, quote, "I mean, why do this? Reggie Cathey was part of the heart and soul of season 2. We didn't feel obligated to dedicate the season to him just because he died. We felt obligated because we loved him and he was a galvanizing force," unquote. So very strange for Disney Plus to remove this tribute to Reggie Cathey. And I'd be interested. Somebody's got to be pressing this, because I don't know why this happened, and neither do you. And listener, maybe if you know, you can let us know. This is very curious to us. I know that Disney is making a lot of changes, as is their right to change the properties now that they're streaming on their service. We talked about it before. George Lucas has changed Star Wars up to the moment that he gave it to Disney, that he sold it to Disney. If you have a property, it is yours to change. You can rewrite history if you want. Now, in this day and age, for people that might, I don't other means at all anymore, but I know that they exist, right? So if you've other means these and maybe have the files on a Plex server or something like that, you can clearly tell the differences between the two. People are going to be able to do this as long as the media exists, that they can make the comparisons, basically. And this one, I don't know. This one kind of bugs me because I don't know why. Now, there might be a good reason that I don't know, but what I know today, I'm like, why do this? The tribute to Reg was probably warranted. I enjoyed it when we watched it, and I felt really bad. It was his last role, by the way, before he passed away. So it meant a lot to us as we were watching it. And, it, you know, if you're a fan of Reg, it meant a lot to you too. So I just don't know why.
I just had a thought, literally, while you were talking about that. Are there any tributes left now?
Question, I don't know. And yes, there is a tribute to Stan Lee and Jessica Jones.
Okay. Well, my thought was maybe they took them all out because they wanted to take out the Stan Lee one, but then they wanted to take everything out and say it was a thing. But if they're leaving the one in Jessica Jones, that throws that idea completely out the window.
Yeah, I can't remember where I read it. It was one of these two articles, I think, but I do remember reading that Jessica Jones, there was a tribute. Yeah. However, the tribute to Lee at the conclusion of season 3 of Jessica Jones still remains in place. And that's in the CBR.com article that we were just talking about Luke Cage.
Well, I'll have to see if I can talk to some of my contacts and see if we can pull something off.
All right. Well, Chris, in the meantime, I know what we have to do. Since it's just us guys and it is National Beer Night, what we need to do is we need to go out, have a drunken night out by the pyramids. I mean, Stargate, starships. I mean, pyramids on the way out.
As long as it's something brown or red, I'm good.
Chris, thanks a lot for going through this with me, and our listeners are thanking you a lot from saving them from the solo SP cast. Where can people find you next?
The best place to find me next is probably over at Playcomics.com, where depending on when you're listening to this, you could be seeing as the newest episode, the previous one, where I talk to Didge from Geek Set podcast about Wolverine's Rage, or you might hear the one that I need to finish editing, where I talk to Tristan Johnson from Step Back History, and It's Probably Not Aliens, about Men in Black, because that connection was right there. Of course, I had to.
Did he flashy thing you before the episode was over?
I don't remember.
Did you record it?
I don't remember that either.
Well, you'll have to find out to see if you can look into the footage and see if there was indeed a jackal there or not, right?
I know there was a cat in the room for sure.
And thank you, listener, for sticking in there with just Chris and I tonight. We're hoping to have a more full house next time. You can find me over on the GonnaGeek.com network. The best place to talk to me is on our Discord server at GonnaGeek.com/Discord. We do have a channel over there, hashtag Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D, where you could talk to any one of us over there. Also, if I haven't mentioned it before, I think I might have mentioned it once or twice. There is another podcast that I'm guesting on called Smoking and Drinking in Space. We're going over The Expanse, and the next episode to come out will be season 5. And then after that, we'll be recording season 6. So I got 2 more episodes over there that I'm going to be on. And that's all there is with The Expanse, unless you want to talk about the books. And, generally the podcasts I'm on are TV based or movie based. So we're not going to be talking about the books over there. So 6 episodes is all we get, seasons 1 through 6. Chris, have you watched any of The Expanse?
I have not. You talking about it is the only reason I know that show exists.
All right. Well, quite frankly, it is the best science fiction series out there. So if you happen to have Prime, you might want to watch it. What I tell everybody that has not seen it yet, give it till the end of episode 4. Unfortunately, we're talking about giving a show 4 episodes, but give it through episode 4 before you make your final decision. If you're in at episode 4, you'll be in. If you're out after episode 4, you'll be out. There's really no way to divide it, but I will tell you, most people are in after episode 4. So give it 4 episodes. I know some people kind of leave it out episode 2 or 3. Give it till episode 4 and you'll be like, man, this is the best thing ever. And I think you'll be that way too. So whenever you get time to watch it, go ahead and do that. And listener, if you're watching it and you have thoughts on it, please let me know how you like it. Not the podcast, but the show. So I'm all about the show. Anyway, until next time, I'm Director SP.
And I'm Agent Chris.
We'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.
Can you eat scarabs?
They probably got some protein in them, so I don't see why not.
We'll have to check that out.
Probably a lot more nutritious than eating your clothes.
Thank you for listening. If you want to leave us feedback, go to GonnaGeek.com and you will find all our contact information and other shows. You can also visit legendsofshield.com where you'll find our complete archive of podcasts. The music heard on this podcast is by Kevin MacLeod, found at incompetech.com, and also artists on pond5.com and audiojungle.net. The opinions heard on this podcast are those of the individual hosts and do not represent Stargate Pioneer Productions, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., or Gonna Geek. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the property of the Disney Corporation, Marvel Studios, and ABC. No infringement is intended.
Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. is copyright 2013 through 2022.
Well, surprise, Chris, I didn't record, so we'll have to take it from the top. You ready?
No. The one time I don't record your side as well.